Continuing Alexander from Plutarch's Lives, translated by John Dryden, revised by Arthur Hugh Clough. Not sure what sentence we ended on, but from what I have said upon this subject, it is apparent that Alexander in himself was not foolishly affected, or had the vanity to think himself really a god. Well, it depends on what people mean by the word god, right? But merely used his claims to divinity as a means of maintaining among other people the sense of his superiority. Now, in a way, it's like the same level of ignorance to do this to other people. And you're still responsible for your influence of misleading other people. At his return out of Egypt into Phoenicia, he sacrificed and made solemn processions, to which were added shows of lyric dances and tragedies, remarkable not merely for the splendor of the equipage and decorations, but for the competition among those who exhibited them. For the kings of Cyprus were here the exhibitors, just in the same manner as at Athens, those who were chosen by lot out of the tribes, and indeed they showed the greatest emulations to outvie each other, especially Nicocreon, king of Salamis, and Pisicrates of Sully, who furnished the chorus, and defrayed the expenses of the two most celebrated actors, Athenodorus and Thessalus, the former performing for Pisicrates and the latter for Nicocreon. Thessalus was most favored by Alexander, though it did not appear till Athenodorus was declared victor by the plurality of votes. For then, at his going away, he said the judges deserved to be commended for what they had done, but that he would willingly have lost part of his kingdom rather than to have seen Thessalus overcome. However, when he understood Athenodorus was fined by the Athenians for being absent at the festivals of Bacchus, though he refused his request that would write a letter in his behalf, he gave him a sufficient sum to satisfy the penalty. Another time, when Lycon of Scarphia happened to act with great applause in the theater, and in a verse which he introduced in the comic part, which he was acting, begged for a present of 10 talents, he laughed and gave him the money. Darius wrote him a letter and sent friends to intercede with him, requesting him to accept as a ransom of his captives the sum of 1,000 talents, and offering him in exchange for his amity and alliance all the countries on this side the river Euphrates, together with one of his daughters in marriage. These propositions he communicated to his friends, when Parmenio told him that, for his part, if he were Alexander, he should readily embrace them. So would I, said Alexander, if I were Parmenio. Likewise, when people, if I was you, and all that, well, you're not. So, accordingly, his answer to Darius was, that if he would come and yield himself up into his power, he would treat him with all possible kindness. If not, he was resolved immediately to go himself and seek him. But the death of Darius's wife in childbirth made him soon after regret one part of this answer, and he showed evident marks of grief at being thus deprived of a further opportunity of exercising his clemency and good nature, which he manifested, however, as far as he could, by giving her a most sumptuous funeral. Among the eunuchs who waited in the queen's chamber were taken prisoners with the women. There was one Tyreus who, getting out of the camp, fled away on horseback to Darius to inform him of his wife's death. When he heard it, beating his head and bursting into tears and lamentations, said, Alas, how great is the calamity of the Persians! Was it not enough that their king's consort and sister was a prisoner in her lifetime, but she must, now she is dead, also be, but meanly and obscurely buried. O king, replied the eunuch, as to her funeral rites or any respect or honor that should have been shown in them, you have not the least reason to accuse the ill fortune of your country, for to my knowledge neither your queen Statira, when alive, nor your mother nor children wanted anything of their former happy condition, unless it were the light of your countenance, which I doubt not, but the Lord, lowercase l, Oromastes, will yet restore to former glory, and after her decease, I assure you, she had not only all the funeral ornaments, but was honored also with the tears of your very enemies, for Alexander is as gentle after victory as he is terrible in the field. At the hearing of these words, such was the grief and emotion of Darius's mind that they carried him into extravagant suspicions, and taking Tyreus aside into a more private part of his tent, unless thou likewise, said he to him, hast deserted me together with the good fortune of Persia, and art become a Macedonian in thy heart, if thou yet ownest me for thy master Darius, tell me, I charge thee, by the veneration thou payest the light of Mithras, and this right hand of thy king, do I not lament the least of Statira's misfortunes in her captivity and death? Have I not suffered something more injurious and deplorable in her lifetime? And had I not been miserable with less dishonor, if I had met with a more severe and inhumane enemy? For how is it possible a young man, as he is, should treat the wife of his opponent with so much distinction, were it not from some motive that does me disgrace? Whilst he was yet speaking, Tyreus threw himself at his feet and besought him neither to wrong Alexander so much, nor his dead wife and sister, as to give utterance to any such thoughts, which deprived him of the greatest consolation, left him in his adversary the belief that he was overcome by a man whose virtues raised him above human nature, that he ought to look upon Alexander with love and admiration, who had given no less proofs of his continence toward the Persian women than of his valor among the men.